Now, we know that two candidates have very different world views when it comes to foreign affairs, particularly when it comes to the Middle East. You've spent a great deal of time in the past year in Israel. What will it mean for that country if Kamala Harris wins, and what will it mean if Donald Trump wins?
Well, we don't really know to a great extent. Donald Trump has a rather clever, I think, thing of saying, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do, because why would I tell you about a negotiation in advance? I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do in a political negotiation and a peace negotiation, as with a business deal. Um, Nevertheless, we know his views. Kamala Harris, the problem is she always says we need a ceasefire and that the IDF must
Mm.
go no further. She's been proven wrong every time. I just got back from a spell in Israel and Lebanon and Gaza the other day, and among other places, I was in Rafah, where of course Sinwar was recently killed, the head of Hamas, and
Mm.
that was the place where Kamala Harris said the IDF should not go. If they had have followed her instructions, they'd have never have found and killed Sinwar. Lebanon, you have Hezbollah having dug all these tunnels, which I've seen myself, right at the Israeli border, right under the watchtowers of the United Nations peacekeeping force, and gathering together 160,000 missiles, short and long range, all under the watchful eyes of the UN. And Kamala Harris always says, "Don't do anything about it, Israel. Why don't we have the lovely status quo of Hezbollah being able to fire rockets peacefully?" So
Mm.
we really don't know very much about her policy, other than that she always sort of says she wants peace. I'm afraid that the world just isn't like that, and that region in particular. To get to peace, you have to win. And what's more, it is clear that Kamala Harris, to the extent that she has foreign policy advisors, are the sort of people who tell her that the whole conflict in the region, which is all the result of the revolutionary Islamic government of Iran spreading its terror proxies across the region, instead of addressing Iran, the thing to do is to give the Palestinians yet another state to turn it into another terror state. And that's the policy, as far as you can see it, that there is a policy of Kamala Harris. So it's not a good outlook. It's really not a good outlook.
No, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the advice she's getting. It seems to be similar, if not worse, than the advice Joe Biden and before him Barack Obama were getting. And they've really have
But
emboldened Iran in the past 4 years.
But remember, of course, Rita, that I mean, whatever you can say against them, I mean, Joe Biden had spent a very, very long career involving himself in foreign affairs. And Barack Obama was a far more impressive and cerebral figure, I think, than Kamala Harris. I don't think in Kamala Harris you could have a commander in chief with so little foreign policy experience, who has thought about these issues so little. And you can tell how little she's thought about them, because whenever the public has the great treat of actually seeing her have to answer a question unprepared, she just doesn't know what to say. There is no bank
It's
of
been
knowledge. Joe
embarrassing.
Biden could sort of, yeah, at least Joe Biden could sort of riff about the time he met Golda Meir or Theodore Herzl or whoever.
Well, whether it happened or not is another question, but you're so right. And it's not just the Middle East. When she's spoken about Russia and Ukraine, there just seems to be very little depth of knowledge there. Now, let's go to the UK, where it appears authorities perhaps deliberately misled the country about the man allegedly behind a shocking crime, the Southport attack, where 3 young girls were murdered. And it's now emerged that the accused is facing terrorism charges, including possessing an Al Qaeda terror manual. Douglas, why did authorities conceal important information about this case and seek to demonise anyone protesting, peacefully or otherwise, in the aftermath of this horrific crime?
Oh, not just demonized, but imprisoned. People were imprisoned
Mm.
for spreading information. Well, it turns out that the accused, as we have to say, because he is on trial, the accused who killed these three under tens at a Taylor Swift dance party, everybody knew from the beginning this is not a common thing in the UK. It just isn't. But if he had have been some kind of one of those fabled white supremacists wielding a knife and saying, "I'm doing this for Goebbels and Hitler," we would have heard about it in no seconds flat. Absolutely. And what happened at Southport was this atrocity occurred. We know that jihadists tend to like going for vulnerable targets, including young girls and young women in particular. So a lot of people sensed that there was something that was being withheld. Well, it turns out months later, two of the things that were being withheld were, yes, that the suspect in question had downloaded Al Qaeda terror manuals and was trying to make the toxin ricin, which jihadists have tried to make in the past, and some have made with some success. Now, the thing about this is a real scandal, Rita, is that first of all, as I say, people went to prison for being accused of spreading false information that may now turn out actually to be correct. And those people were dealt with in overnight courts and were given very long prison sentences. It seems that both Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, and others who oversaw those rapid prosecutions of members of the general public would have known, must have known, what was found in the suspect's house within 24 hours of the police going in. So it seems possible, very likely, that they were overseeing the swift prosecution of people saying things that they were claiming was fake news, but actually might turn out to be correct. That is an utter scandal. And in any normal political season, it would see a government fall. But this is not a normal political season, and the Starmer government turns out not to be a very normal government.
No, it is an enormous scandal. I think we're going to hear about it for many years to come. Do you feel that Keir Starmer perhaps engaged in this behaviour about this case so he could justify further illiberal policies that suppress free speech, so he could justify further censorship?
I doubt it's as well thought through as that. I think they panicked. And I've seen this in some of the people in power in the UK and across Europe and elsewhere in recent years. I've seen it. Something terrible happens, and they realize that there could be the possibility that the general public pins it on them, says you've been incredibly lax with our borders, you've been wildly lax with our security, and it doesn't really matter how big the scale of the atrocity is, so much as the emotive nature of the atrocity. 3 young girls being stabbed to death under the age of 10, and many others wounded for life, and all of them scarred for life from this. That's a very emotive thing. And that it happened in Southport, in the north of England, not in the center of London, where we've seen plenty of terrorist attacks in the past, but in a relatively small town, means it could happen anywhere. Now, in that case, the government is in real trouble, and it might know it's in trouble, and the security services might know they're in trouble. What is the classic way to deal with something when you don't know how to deal with the big problem? It's to try to crack down on anyone who identifies the problem. I know a lot of this from relatively first-hand experience. It's the easiest way in the world to stop a problem. It's like the emperor's new clothes. In the old days, I think Mark Stein said this first. In the old days, people said that the young boy who pointed out the emperor had no clothes was brave, and the mob joined in with him and ended up laughing at the emperor. These days, if anyone points out the emperor has no clothes, everyone is encouraged to clobber the person who said so and get that kid out of town. And I'm afraid that's the situation we're in, and it's lamentable for the future of my country.
It is, and sadly, I think the media is largely complicit in that phenomenon as well. I think they've large segments of the media, not all of the media, are guilty of pushing that agenda. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time this evening.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you.